Goal is to do is to hit $1 billion in SBA loans this year. So an SBA loan is a government-backed loan, typically extended by a commercial bank. Running a business is not simple, but for those that are motivated and passionate about it, it's amazing how much success you can have.
Welcome to the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast, the best place for you to come to figure out the right franchise to buy and how to get and stay profitable. My name is Tariq Johnson, and I've bought, grown, and sold multiple franchises and got myself free from corporate America, and now I'm on a mission to help you do that too. Here you'll find some of the most in-depth profitable franchise secrets, tangible strategies, and specific mindsets to help you create your dream life through franchising. So you may think you know how SBA loans work, but do you really? How do you get approved for an SBA loan? Is an SBA loan even the right type of funding for the business you're looking to start? Well, in this episode, I talk with Glenn Giro of Huntington Bank. Literally all he does all day, every day is help his clients get approved for SBA loans. So we'll talk about how SBA loans work, how to get approved for SBA loans, and the specific uses and businesses that can even get SBA loans and are eligible. We also talk about how you can finance real estate with SBA loans and how that process works. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at buyaprofitablefranchise.com. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. With that said, let's jump into episode number 10 of the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast. All right, everyone, I'm here with Glenn Giro, and we are going to talk about SBA loans. I got the king of SBA loans here. So this is going to be an exciting episode. Glenn, welcome.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I asked a friend who does a lot of podcasts for some advice, and he said just don't be boring was his advice. So I'm going to try to make SBA lending as fun as possible. So I appreciate you having me, and I like that king title. I'll wear that, even though it's probably not true, but I like it.
That's awesome. But SBA loans are an important topic. I mean, we're in a time right now where a lot of people are looking to buy businesses, get into owning businesses, and at the end of the day, I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but like one of the main reasons why businesses fail is a lack of funding, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And SBA loans, obviously been around for a while. The agency itself started in the 50s. So not a new kind of program per se, but one that I think was kind of thrust into the limelight during COVID because of the PPP program. So a lot of businesses who had never kind of engaged with the SBA in the past were able to kind of take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program, and it kind of created a little bit of just familiarity with kind of the organization and what it did, and its main purpose, which is to help businesses either start, grow, expand. And so, yeah, absolutely. The result of that was that you have a lot of people now looking for funding, whether it's startup. And the kind of the acronym SBA is familiar now, right? Maybe they don't know the details of the program, but I think they're more kind of interested in kind of finding out more details. And so it's been a great space to be in. I feel kind of lucky to kind of be part of such a great kind of program designed to help with small business lending. So it's been an exciting time in the world of SBA. Yeah,
cool. And actually, I guess we probably should have tackled this in the beginning a little bit. So Glenn's with Huntington Bank. And You've been in the banking industry for about 15 years now, huh?
Yeah, so banking for about 15 years, started kind of as your personal banker. So kind of the person when you walked into the branch would kind of help you with a little bit of everything. Had my investments license, but kind of quickly, you kind of had conversations with different types of clients, right? People interested in buying a home, people, maybe talking about investments. But my favorite conversation was always with business owners, just kind of the passion they would have. They would, open up a little bit easier. You try to talk to somebody about investments in 2008, kind of good luck, right? The market was kind of crashing and they just were not interested. So I kind of learned early on that when you sat down with a business owner and you could genuinely kind of help them grow their business and support them, that was a great conversation to have. So kind of from the very early stages of banking, wanted to kind of go the route of working with business owners. So it's been obviously a kind of a great kind of career path that kind of led me to specifically doing SBA lending just a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so you and I have a similar I guess, similar stories in that sense, which is in about 2008 is when I got into, I think 2008, 2009 is when I got my first job as a personal banker. And I wanted to go into business banking, but I wound up getting more secure investment licenses.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I just naturally went that path. But so interesting. And I saw an interesting post that you did on LinkedIn about a month ago, and I wanted to bring this up in the beginning of our conversation, and which is really about Huntington. So you're a senior SBA development officer, right? So you do all SBA. Like that's all that you do every day is SBA loans, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And then you got Huntington Bank, who recently took their SBA loan program national, meaning that they don't just do them in their footprint anymore. Like if you guys are in one state, you only do it there, you'll do it national. And so I was looking at your post that you did about a month ago. Was that just for the month of January? Stats just for the month of January?
Just for the month of January. So Huntington Bank is a dedicated SBA lender, and they were they're still a Midwestern regional bank. They acquired TCF last year, which gave them some additional footprint in like Minnesota and Colorado, but it really kind of strengthened their Midwestern footprint. But they're an SBA bank. They decided about 2 years ago that they wanted to kind of take that kind of business and make it nationwide. One of the reasons kind of why I'm in Nashville, Tennessee is they made an announcement about a year ago that they were looking to put SBA officers in specific markets, one of those being Nashville, Tennessee. Being from Tennessee originally, but living in Chicago at the time, it was such a great opportunity. There's so much growth going on. So it's a little bit of the best of both worlds because I can kind of introduce Huntington Bank to the state of Tennessee, but at the same time kind of develop nationwide partnerships to lend to anybody in the country. So it's been kind of an exciting kind of transition. And yeah, Huntington, I mean, their goal is to be the nation's top SBA lender by volume and by dollars. And so the only way to do so is to get in front of many business owners as possible and let them know how you can help. And so thanks to people like you, we can kind of spread the good word and let them know that Huntington Bank is a dedicated SBA lender. It's kind of I kind of say it's kind of their bread and butter product. We are an SBA bank. We do everything at Huntington, obviously from personal to investments. But I like to think that, our specialty is SBA lending.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I'm just looking at this, and this was January 2022. But you guys were number one in the nation with a number of SBA loans, 1,320. You did twice the amount of Wells Fargo, and you guys did $198 million in SBA loans just in the month of January.
Yep, we're trying to. The goal is to do $1 billion. Is to hit $1 billion in SBA loans this year. So to hit that goal, you have to have a pretty aggressive. You have to have a pretty aggressive pipeline. And here's the thing: is Huntington didn't create the program. Obviously, the government sets the rules of what qualifies for an SBA loan. So finding quality applications, quality candidates is part of the deal. So it's not just handing out dollars to kind of anybody and everybody, but kind of finding well qualified people. But what I think people don't realize is that what it takes to be well qualified maybe isn't as tough, as difficult as kind of a lot of people think. A lot of people think it's cash heavy, right? I got to have lots of cash to get approved for a loan, especially if you're kind of in the more startup phase. But there's ways to access equity, and that could be from old 401ks. That can be from savings, but you maybe not need to use as much as you need. You can get gifts from family members that are willing to support. So there's a lot of different routes to kind of qualify for SBA lending. And so I think the main thing is just, again, kind of making sure that people are educated, which most people aren't until you have a conversation with them. So I know, Tariq, one of your big things is obviously having these types of conversations with people and just letting them know what different options are, whether it's through SBA or other means. Now's a great time to either start or expand a business because banks are lending. The SBA program, trust me, I get kind of recruiters in my inbox all the time asking if I'd be interested to talk because, banks are trying to grow their SBA program. It's a great program, and I think finally lenders are coming around to really wanting to support it. But Huntington's been doing it for a while, so we're not new to the block. We know the product really well, and again, it's kind of why it's great to be an SBA officer kind of with the bank that's behind me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, this is when I work with clients. So, I help people buy businesses, buy franchises, and funding is like one of the scariest parts for people, obviously. But all right, so let's just take a step back for a second for the people that have no idea what an SBA loan is, because I think there's a lot of confusion out there. Because I hear people go, well, is the SBA going to give me money? As if they think it's actually the SBA lending money. So can you just give like the simplified version of what an SBA loan even is?
Yep. So an SBA loan is a government-backed loan, typically extended by a commercial bank institution, right? So a bank has to go through steps to be considered a preferred lender. So not all banks participate in SBA loan programs, but a bank like Huntington, which has kind of that preferred lender status, essentially what we've been designated as somebody who understands the program, who kind of knows the rules to the program. And so we underwrite all the deals, we approve the deals, we send everything to the SBA, obviously, to get reviewed just to make sure from an eligibility standpoint there's no issues. And then we service the loan. So the loan is, you have questions about the loans, you call Huntington Bank. And so why it's such a great deal for the banks is there's a government guarantee that supports the loan. So in a worst case scenario, a default, the bank is not on the hook for 100%. And why that's important is because a lot of the types of deals that these SBA loans are for tend to have a lack of collateral, right? If you're starting a franchise and you don't own the commercial real estate, you're just leasing, but maybe you need some money for some leasehold improvements or just some general working capital, payroll, marketing, advertising, those things don't have much collateral value to them. So conventional lending tends not to be an option. But because of the government guarantee, it promotes lending in those type of scenarios. So that's kind of what it is. So you're not applying directly through the SBA. The banks are the ones that implement the program.
Yeah, got it. So in simple terms, the bank's lending you the money, and then the SBA is saying, hey, basically, if that person defaults and doesn't pay back the loan, then the SBA will cover and guarantee a certain percentage and get the lender, like Huntington, their money back, right?
Correct. Yep. And as of right now, it's 75% of a loan and 50% of a line of credit. So that's the government guarantee percentage of a loan in the line.
Got it. Awesome. All right. So now that we've kind of clarified what an SBA loan is, let's talk about who an SBA loan is for, who an SBA loan is not for. Let's cover who it's not, who is an SBA loan not for?
So yeah, a lot of the requests that I get that I unfortunately have to turn down is kind of anybody that's in kind of the investment real estate space, right? So anybody that's looking to buy a commercial space, but maybe they're not going to be the tenant. They're looking to lease it out. Or somebody that's looking to buy, a common one is like an Airbnb. Do you finance Airbnb properties? That's considered residential. And obviously it's not considered owner occupied in terms of a business operating in the space. So those are typically ones that we can't do through the SBA program. Also, anything over $5 million with the SBA 7A, any request over $5 million it goes above the cap. So we can't lend over that dollar amount. So that's kind of, I would say, the most common requests that I get that we cannot do. Anything kind of investment related.
Anything investment related. Got it. So, and then who is like a good candidate for an SBA loan?
So the beautiful thing about the loan, it kind of hits all the stages of a company's growth, right? So you can go everything from startup to expansion to a partner buyout to a business acquisition. So everything from starting the business to eventually, if you want to sell the business, whoever's looking to buy, we can finance for. So, it really can be meant for anybody. And the great thing about it is the different uses of an SBA loan. So we talked about expansion. So that could be, you said you help a lot with franchise. So that's a very common, lending request. So when it comes to franchise, we can help, like I said before, with leasehold improvements. We can help with equipment. We can help with general working capital. We can help with payroll. Kind of think about all the things that kind of hit those first 6 months worth of expenses to get the business up and running. And then we can also supplement kind of an SBA loan with a line of credit. So some kind of general working capital. We kind of say that's for after the first 6 months, kind of have some additional capital that you can have access to for any short-term needs. Because, the one thing you don't want to do is run out of capital, right? Probably the most common reason business fails, they just run out of money. And, the great thing about an SBA loan is that if done correctly, it should get you well capitalized to give you that ramp up. You want to hit those first 2 years, get out of those growing pains, be able to set up kind of a customer base wherever you're at. And hopefully that leads to success. And so we don't want that to be the issue. We want you to get through those first 2 years well capitalized and be successful as possible, and hopefully come back and want to expand. And we can help out with that as well. So, so I would say that's kind of one of the main reasons for it.
Yeah, awesome. And so I know that you do one specific space of SBA lending, so I want to jump into that in a second. But really our conversation, I think, will be tailored specifically around the people who are, looking to kind of acquire a business and some of the more kind of main uses of of an SBA loan, or that maybe at least my kind of my audience will benefit from. But we'll talk about some more outside of that too. But I know in the beginning of our conversation, but I think before we kind of hit record, you were talking about what channel you serve in the SBA space. Can you talk about that, what that is, and like who you work with in the SBA space?
So let's take commercial real estate, for example. One of the benefits of an SBA loan, let's say you're a business that's currently leasing and you want to buy a commercial space. We can finance 100% of that purchase. And on top of that, we can actually, if you need to do some building improvements, maybe you need to buy some new equipment, we can kind of package that all in together. Finance up to 100% of all that. We stretch that out over 25 years. And we only do a 3-year prepayment penalty. So again, kind of the idea, keep your cash in your bank, right? For any unexpected hurdles.
So they don't have to put any money down?
Potentially, if the business is strong enough from a cash flow perspective, we can finance 100%. It's amazing the things you can do for a well-qualified buyer through the SBA loan. Now, they may elect to put some money down, and that's perfectly fine, but they don't have to. And we can finance all that. With a business acquisition, for example, we typically look for around 10% equity injection of whatever the purchase price is. You can actually do as little as 5% if the seller's willing to participate in a seller's note. 5% of your own cash, 5% of a seller's note, and we could typically, and that'll kind of account for the 10% that we typically like to see.
And you guys, sorry to interrupt you, you guys actually funded one of my, this was before you and I met, but one of my clients, Cole, I did a podcast episode with him. He bought a resale college hunks hauling junk, and that situation played out where he put 5% down. The seller gave him, I think, actually 5 or 10% seller financing. Yep. And they were able to make it happen with that. So
great program, because for the owner, think about this: instead of getting a lump sum of cash, they're kind of delaying that income, right? So from a tax liability, and I'm not a tax professional, so don't take my word for it, but you think about it, that's delayed income that they can have, and and they can get those in monthly payments over a specific period of time. So it's actually a great program, and the seller remains invested. One of the reasons why we like the seller's note is because if you have any issues, especially that first year or so, if you have any issues with the business, or you have questions, and you call that previous owner, if they still have a vested interest, they'll typically pick up the phone, and they have an interest to help you out as well, right? If it's just a clean transaction and they got their money, they might be on the beach somewhere. They might look at that incoming call and hang. They might not pick it up. So we do like seller participation, not requirement, but it's something to always consider when going through a business acquisition.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right. So, and just to be clear, business acquisition is when you're buying a resale business, basically, when you're buying an existing business, and you typically only have to put, like you said, about 10% down, which is amazing. So for those who are watching, think about this. Imagine that you could buy a business that's selling for $500,000. And let's say if that business is selling for a 3 times multiple of its profits, let's say that business is making 150, 160 grand a year in profits, you could quit your job, buy a business tomorrow with just putting 50 grand down. If you can get approved through SBA, you put 50 grand down, finance the remaining 450 via SBA. You've got yourself free from your job. You got a business that's profiting, and that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. And Tariq, let me even give you a little bit, sweeten the deal even more. We can give you some money back in working capital. So you're thinking about you're putting your 10% equity injection. Maybe we give you 5% at closing cash back for working capital. I mean, it can happen. Again, as long as the business can support the debt, we can get pretty creative. So there's ways to, if cash is a concern, putting money down, there's ways that, again, we can make sure you're well capitalized going into starting a business. We want you to be successful, and and we want you to have the means to do it. So we can look at putting some working capital right away at closing, and then obviously we're always going to look to supplement with a line of credit. So it's a great program. It's a great deal.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so let's talk about another example of like someone buying a franchise, right? A brand new franchise, and they're trying to figure out what their funding options are. What are the typical standard guidelines if someone's wanting to buy a new franchise under SBA?
Yeah, so franchise startup, we're looking around 20% equity injection, and that's total project cost. So what's total project cost? Obviously, you have the franchise fee, any equipment that you need to buy, leasehold improvements, the general working capital bucket, which that's, anything that you can, it goes back kind of anything in that first 6-month period. Because what we like to do is we like to structure kind of a draw in that loan. So you think about when you close on the loan, let's say the loan is for $400,000. You have 6 months to draw that loan down. So it's almost like a draw. It's essentially a draw to term note. So for 6 months, you're just requesting funds based on, a general contracts request, buying equipment, payroll, any of the reasons that are eligible for SBA. You're only paying interest only on the money borrowed over the first 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, that loan, essentially whatever that remaining balance is, which could be the entire amount, or if you come under budget, could be a lower loan amount. That terms out over the remaining, it's a 10-year period, it's a 10-year term in total, so 6-month draw, and then 9.5-year P&I principal and interest payment. So for franchise startups, that's what we're looking for. In terms of where that money is typically coming from, obviously, you have the obvious, which is just cash or liquidating some, investments. A rollover for business startup or a ROBS account is extremely popular. So for those that have an old 401k from an old employer, you can tap into that money and take it out where it's tax friendly, where you're not getting dinged the early withdrawal period. So that's another great option. And then of course you can have partners in the business. Anybody that's 20% owner or greater has to be a guarantor for an SBA loan. So if you have a partner that wants to be involved, but maybe just wants to be an equity partner, or just kind of give some cash to the deal, but doesn't want to be a guarantor. If they have less than 20%, they can kind of pitch in some money, but not have to be a guarantor. And then of course you can always get gifts, right? So it's sometimes common for a parent or a family member to give you a gift. We just need basically a letter saying that there's no repayment on that gift, and that can be considered equity injection. So a lot of different ways to come up with the cash to kind of satisfy that 20% equity injection requirement.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. And so I know you said that you work in the this, what is it, 7A program, right? So can you explain what is the SBA 7A program?
Yeah, so the SBA 7A program, the reason why I like it so much is like we just discussed, it can be used for a lot of different things. So like franchise startup, purchasing commercial real estate, expansion, just think about any number of reasons to expand to a second location, partner buyouts, debt refinance, financing equipment. So typically when it's non-real estate related, it's a 10-year term. When it's real estate related, it's a 25-year term, fully amortized. So there's no balloon payments. It is a 25-year straight term with a 3-year prepay. So that's pretty good too, because if year 5 you want to refinance or if you want to kind of do anything different, you can pay it off at no penalty. So that's what's great about the 7A. It's a really flexible loan program. And then the terms, right? So 10-year terms. So think about debt refinance. So I'm actually working on a deal right now. In 2020, this customer kind of took out a high interest rate kind of loan that was supposed to be paid back in I think it was like 4 years, and the interest rate's like 25%. But they had to do it during COVID. They panicked, right? They just needed some money, and so we're going to be able. I think they said their monthly payment is like $26,000 a month. So essentially, we're taking this 4-year note at 25% and stretching out over 10 years at 6%. And it completely changes the monthly cash flow for the business. It's a huge no-brainer. So it's a great deal for them. It gets them out of this high interest rate loan. It stretches the payment out. And on our 10-year terms, there's no prepayment penalty. So they can aggressively pay that thing down in a year if they want to, and not have any penalty. So a great program for debt refinance as well.
And so what about those people out there that they're looking to start, because I know there'll be some people watching in that are just, they're trying to start up their own business, their own thing. They have an idea. How does SBA work for those type of people?
Yeah, obviously you want to put some thought into it, right? I encourage people to sit down. A business plan is crucial. We actually do look at that and read through it. Projections. You got to understand what do you think you're going to do year 1, year 2, year 3, kind of putting numbers on paper. Obviously, if it's a franchise, you can kind of get numbers from the franchise to kind of get an expectation of what do similar places do in kind of maybe your geographic kind of area. And then obviously your background, right? What have you done professionally that makes it that allows us to say, yeah, this makes sense that they'd want to start this business. It doesn't have to be, I've done this my whole life and now I'm doing this exact same thing as franchise, but like, have you managed a team before? Are you used to dealing with inventory? Are you used to dealing with retail sales? You know, where is there a connection between what you've previously done and what you're looking to do going forward? So I encourage people to definitely do their research, get some help, you know, ask questions. If you know somebody who's in a similar industry or similar business type, you know, get some feedback. Because we review all those things. The application process itself on our end is pretty thorough. I mean, I spend probably 2 to 3 hours on every submission that I do because of the information that I need to translate. So when our underwriter picks it up, they should know exactly what the credit request is, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are. How do we mitigate the weaknesses? I mean, that's one big thing, right? My goal is to, when I submit an application, we should have already kind of hashed out all of the concerns of the deal. So that way the underwriter, you know, if they're coming back, it might be for something that is more just to clarify something, not of a, hey, this is an issue that I see on the application. So yeah, I would just encourage anybody, you know, if you're interested in finding out some more information, obviously I'm happy to be a resource. Tariq, I know you do a lot of work with them too. But you know, I would just say it's going to take some time and effort. You know, if it's something you really want to do, you should want to put some time and effort into kind of thinking of all the information that goes into starting a business, because it's definitely not easy. Running a business is not simple, but for those that are motivated and passionate about it, it's amazing how much success you can have.
Yeah, definitely. And Glenn was a miracle worker. The first, when you and I connected, the first kind of clients that we had teamed up that I had referred you to, I probably gave you like one of the hardest situations, clients that had been turned down by other lenders, and you made it happen, man. You pulled kind of a rabbit out of the hat in that situation, and I know you probably spent hours and hours and hours and hours on that deal. So certainly a testament to how much time that goes in the application. And let's be honest, SBA is not for the faint of heart, right? I mean, it's a pretty rigorous process to get an SBA loan.
Yeah, I just thought you didn't like me. I thought that was a way of no. But you know what? So going back to that example, the story mattered. The story really mattered, and it's kind of my job to present the story, right? Like if somebody just throws some numbers in an online application, hits submit, the story gets lost. If you're not willing to kind of guide somebody, hey, here's what SBA looks for. Let me hear your story. Let's make sure that the narrative kind of matches what the underwriter's going to be looking for, right? I work with underwriters all day, every day. I know the things that they're looking for. I know the challenges that tend to pop up. Let's get in front of all that. So it wasn't a scenario that they were bad borrowers per se. It was just a scenario where we just needed to kind of fine tune what the story was and make sure that they had the business planning to be tightened up. Let's get the projections a little bit more on base. Let's make sure, the story of the owners comes through, why their past experience is relevant to what they're trying to do. And so, I'll take the miracle worker title, but all I did was just make sure that the story, came through. In a similar scenario, if I didn't think there was much of a chance, I'd be open and honest about that too. But no, it's a gratifying feeling, right? When you have somebody who really wants to do something and they've got concerns, because like you said, the SBA process is tedious. This is a government program, right? Like the government designed this program, and the one thing that they did on this is just they made sure that the guidelines and restrictions and eligibility, paperwork. It's old school with some paperwork. Obviously, you got to fill it out. You got to hand sign it. We had, I'm crossing my fingers that DocuSign. We're gonna be able to do DocuSign more. And so, and everything has to be recorded, right? I mean, the SBA looks at these numbers probably on a daily basis of what's the program, how's it doing, who's it going towards. And the one thing they could do if a lender is not following the rules is they could pull their ability to do SBA loans. And for a bank like Huntington, that just can't happen. So, I'm under a microscope. I have to make sure I'm submitting deals that qualify, and I'm making sure I'm asking the right questions. And I'm also trying to set proper expectations. And, the experience with SBA, depending on who you ask, either be, it wasn't bad, we were able to get it closed in 30 days, to like, they're asking for my firstborn child and they wanted blood, so it just like anybody who's gone through a home mortgage knows what I'm talking about. Like the experience kind of is whatever you make it. Yes, we're going to ask for documentation. Yeah, we're going to have to track and make sure your equity injection came from where you said and all that. But, at the end of the day, the most important thing is you close and you achieved your goal, whatever that was, in terms of getting financing from the SBA. And that's kind of what I'm here to do, is help make that goal happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the life cycle of getting the loan and kind of what that looks like, because I think it'd be interesting for people to understand that. But one of the reasons why I felt comfortable having Glenn on is because Glenn's really become my go-to guy for my clients. And before that, I kind of had a lot of trouble like landing a good relationship with an SBA lender for my clients that I actually felt comfortable and confident like handing them over to. I mean, there were a few misses of just clients getting turned down, using kind of middlemen that were kind of brokers that kind of shopped it out to a few different lenders. And we had a few times where the middleman was like, yes, pre-approved SBA loan, and then when it came down to it, none of their partners would lenders would actually say yes to loan. So then it was like, then my clients had to start the process all over again after months of going through underwriting, and it was just like, it was terrifying. And so, I know that not to toot Glenn's horn a little bit too much, but I've had a good amount of clients that you've been working with now, and they've all said the same thing, which is Glenn's amazing. And, just the relationship aspect and how much how hands-on you get, like you said, even before they're even submitting their application. And I feel like it's hard to find nowadays. And what I found is in the world of lending, especially SBA lending, like there are a lot of bad people out there. So, just want to say thank you for, being such a resource and helping me out, because it helps, that's one less thing that I have to worry about dealing with when it comes to helping the people that I work with get their outcome, which is to own a business and, free themselves from their job.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the compliment, but I kind of feel like I'm just doing my job, right? Like if your job is to help businesses get financing, then that's what you should be doing, right? If somebody comes to you and has questions, hey, I'm trying to start a franchise or I'm trying to buy a business, the least you can do is try to help them. And so, you're talking about the process. It's pretty simple, right? You meet the person first. You have a conversation. You try to get an idea of what they're trying to accomplish, right? And then, you can kind of talk about the program, kind of let them know kind of what the process looks and sounds like, the documentation required. And then, what I typically ask for is let's start sending me some financials, kind of what do you have? Obviously, depending on whether you're a startup or you're an existing business trying to grow, expand, or buy another business. I usually try to I'm not an underwriter. I definitely won't claim to be one, but I try to do like an informal underwriting, I guess you could say. So I'll run some numbers. I'll just make sure things make sense. And then I'll typically go back to the person and say, hey, here's what I saw that I really liked. Here's what I saw that could have some issues in underwriting. And so let's try to clear those things up. And then, just kind of working back and forth and, I try to provide a term sheet. Once I feel comfortable about moving forward by submitting an application, what I'll do is I'll just kind of provide a term sheet, which is kind of an informal document that says, hey, we're looking to loan. This is what it would look and this is what it would sound like, right? So you have something tangible you can look at and say, okay, here's the dollar amount, here's the rate, here's the terms. And the idea being, once you kind of sign that off and get it back to me, we're off to the races. So again, submit the loan application. That takes a few hours for me to do. And then once I submit it, it goes into a queue to be picked up by an underwriter. So that could take a week or 2 weeks to do that. Once an underwriter picks it up, if I did my job correctly, they shouldn't have to come back with too many questions, right? Because I have a narrative. I've answered a bunch of questions about the business. So hopefully they're able to make the decision. If they got to come back with questions, no problem. I'll reach out to the client, kind of gather that information. So the hope is that we have a decision within, maybe 2 to 3 weeks of submission. Obviously, with an approval, at that point, I get a commitment letter. So this is our commitment to lend to you. Here's the details. Again, it should be very similar to the term sheet that I provided, but here's the actual binding document that says we're prepared to lend. Once that gets signed and sent back to me, then we kind of move to post-approval. So that process, depending on if there's real estate, what the request is, if we order, appraisals, environmentals for real estate, or just business valuations for an acquisition, or just, for leasehold improvements, having a contractor's information. The post-approval process can take, let's just say 30 days. So I typically tell people from submission to closing, expect 45 to 60 days, assuming everything, goes fairly smoothly. So that's kind of the process.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for detailing that. What, I think, coming to a close here, like, what do you think, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make going into the SBA process that they should avoid and be thinking of?
I think just not prepared. For people who are looking to start businesses, just still in very early stages, right? I think they, and that's fine. I'm happy to have conversation at any stage. And that's kind of where, in that first conversation, I set the expectation, hey, you're going to need these things to move forward, right? For those people that have the businesses that are looking to acquire financing, just making sure their books are in order, right? Just making sure, just from an accounting standpoint, their P&Ls, their profit and loss statements, their balance sheets, their tax returns, things are up to date, accurate. Making sure you're accounting. I've had people, when I ask for a balance sheet or a profit and loss statement, basically like handwrite it on a piece of paper and send it to me. Like something they just kind of scratch together in 5 minutes. And that's a reflection of the business, right? If you're not, and think about me giving that to an underwriter, and they're going to pick that up and think, what's going on here? I mean, why would you even send this in
Declined.
like this, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's a reflection, right? It matters. And I've kind of said this a few times, and I'll say it again. The story matters. The business information that's on paper, whether it's a business plan and projections or tax returns and, financial statements, those are part of the story of the business. And it shows kind of, it shows a level of dedication to making sure the business is reflected properly on paper. And so, the biggest thing is just not being prepared for an application. They want to move fast, right? They want it to be quick. I've got this need, get it done. Like, go get it done. And I'm just like, you need to give me the tools to get it done, right? It's not that easy. It takes hours on my end, right? I'm not gonna dedicate those hours unless I know that you're kind of taking this request seriously. So, it's definitely that, just a lack of preparation. And for a lot of, I tell you, the hard part for businesses is that are going through that growth, that we're just kind of a $250,000 a year revenue business, and then they spike, and now they're almost $750 million a year, and it's a complete adjustment of how you have to think about it. You could do that all on your own before. You got to find help. You got to bring in either internal people or hire external consultants. And so it's just kind of getting in that mindset. And a lot of times they don't think about that until they go to the bank and ask for money, and the bank is basically saying, hey, you're not ready. You're not showing that you're ready. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing I come across, where I just kind of like, okay, we need to have a heart to heart here.
Yeah, we need to have a heart to heart. I've seen it so many times just in having looked at so many P&Ls for resale businesses, one for myself, two for clients. It just people's financials in complete disarray, just like they're just terrible, looking at their profit and loss statements and their balance sheets, and and then they have a ton of personal expenses and things on there, and it makes things a mess. And so advice to all of you, whether you're an existing business owner or whether you're just getting into entrepreneurship and owning your first business, like, make sure you hire someone, a good bookkeeper or accountant, to do your financials. And like, I know it's the last thing that you want to think about, but do that. And I made the terrible mistake, Glenn, when I owned my first franchise. For the first year and a half, I did my own financials, man. And it was the worst decision I ever made. And then come to figure out, it's only a couple $100 a month to like have a bookkeeper do your financials. So it's the biggest waste of time that you could do as an owner, to not just hire a professional to do it. And then you don't really have to think about it. Like, my bookkeeper sends me an email at the start of the new month, looking at the other month, and either my financial statements are done, complete, or they say, hey, we have a few questions about these transactions. We've got a few, uncategorized transactions. What were these for? And then it's pretty simple after that.
Yeah, no, help is key. You're not alone on this journey. Most business owners, they know their business, right? I mean, they typically chose this industry because they specialize in something. But that's why they have somebody like you. That's why I have somebody like me, a bookkeeper, whatever, to kind of help fill in those gaps where, they don't specialize in, who specializes in SBA loan other than some guy like me, right? So there's plenty of help out there. There's plenty of people willing to help business owners be successful. So I think you nailed it, right? Don't hesitate to connect with people that can help you focus on growing your business and kind of let them take care of the things that might be bogging you down, like accounting and things like that. So highly recommend surrounding yourself with some really good people.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, man. So if someone wants to reach out to you and get some advice and help on SBA loans, where can they find you? How can they get in touch?
So a few different ways. Obviously, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Just you can search my name, and then obviously my email address. If anybody out there has pen and paper handy, it's just my first and last name. So Glenn.Giro, and that's at Huntington.com. And then cell phone as well. I'm always open for a conversation. So 704-609-3191. So by any of the means I mentioned, you can get a hold of me.
Yeah, and we'll put the links in like the description and everything like that, so people can just grab it out of there, the email or your cell or so on and so forth, and reach out. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for the time. Thanks for dropping the bombs of nuggets about SBA loans and how people can get their business funded.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't too boring. That was my one rule was like, do not bore people with SBA talk. But I appreciate you, Tariq. The work that you do is awesome, and I thank you for having me join you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.